My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. It's your host, Rick Clemons, and those of you watching on video, you see there's another guy here, but let me give you a little insight of where we're going today. Sometimes, especially in times like what we're in right now, there's some trauma and stuff that's happened, and we all are searching for something to land in. And sometimes it's learning how to be that healer of yourself so you can help heal other people. And then we realize, well, that's great if I can do it for myself, but I don't want to just do it all alone. I want to have some community and I want to feel like a presence. Well, I'm inviting each of you into our little community here today of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk with my good friend, Wil Fisher, who is a fellow coach. He is the host of Queerly Beloved podcast. And we're just going to wrap our arms around everybody today and say, let's talk about how we heal from within and heal ourselves and help to heal others. And then really find those spaces where community can carry us forward. So Wil, my friend, my brother, I said it before we even got on, I'm so glad you're here today to just, kind of let's do this. Let's just have a good chat about healing and how we get there. So do you have your magic wand, right? You have your magic wand for making all this healing happen, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I've got it.
It's a
You've got
one.
it. We've got, yeah, mine's sparkly and glittery and rainbow, pink rainbow.
Of course. And he's not lying. I've seen him in his lovely outfits. He's got some amazing outfits of his freedom and his spirit and everything. But
thanks.
So you really wanted to kind of bring into this conversation this healing piece, and I think it's appropriate given where we are. So why is this healing, being a healer, healing ourselves, why is it such a important part of your own journey?
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to start by saying I just loved that intro and the invitation to just hug on each other. Me and you in a hug, and everyone listening in a hug. And there is just a need right now for more hugs. That's how I want to start, is by saying, let's hug more. Let's bring a movement of hugs into existence, because we all are needing some good hugs right now. We are needing some good loving. And yeah, I mean, healing is so important for, I believe, everybody's journey. It certainly has been a huge part of my path. And it feels like now in particular, we are needing to receive the healing necessary to stand in a foundation of strength so that we can go up against the challenges. We can be with the uncertainty. We can be with those who oppose us or try to oppress us. We need to come from a place of wholeness and a healed place of completion in order to be in more challenging times. And so it's not to say that we have to be healed completely in order to stand for ourselves, but it is important to find those opportunities to heal in order to be in a more whole and complete state so that we can stand firm in our strength and power during times of uncertainty and challenge, which I think most people would agree we are currently in right now.
We definitely are. And I think sometimes we feel like, okay, I've had a lot of conversations, no hope. Or, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to put the next foot in front of the other, right? And a couple of conversations I've had has been, that's okay. It's okay to feel those things.
Yeah.
Because if we don't feel them, we can't heal them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to come out of my mouth.
So yes, Rick, that's good one.
If we don't feel them, we can't heal them, because so much of locking in those feelings is saying, I need somebody else to do this. I need, and we've all been frightened. I believe all of us as humans, but especially as gay men, we've been frightened of showing our feelings.
Yes.
And in these moments, I think we revert back. In fact, I said to a friend of mine the other day, I said, you know what? And I almost posted it, post day after election, like every LGBTQ person today feels just like they did back in middle school or high school,
Mm.
afraid to say
Mhm.
their truth.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, it's so important what you said just then, that if you can't feel them, we can't heal them, because it is true. And I can think about my own story of pretending that everything was okay in the past and trying to put on a facade that everything was okay, and stepping through life as a people pleaser and trying
Mhm.
to act like I'm good, you're good, we're all good, and denying the stuff that was underneath the surface, right? And in order to get to the healing part, first I had to acknowledge, accept, and feel what was not feeling so good, right? To actually acknowledge that, yes, there is fear, there is shame, there is sadness, there is these negative, challenging emotions that are under the surface, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that I am going to be stuck in them forever. I can see them and be with them and honor them even. And in so doing, I can start the process of accepting that that's where I'm at, but I don't have to be stuck there. I can actually heal them. And I think that the thing that I'm present to right now is that we are so capable of healing ourselves and healing each other when we are given the space, the invitation, the permission to do so. I just finished a retreat over at Easton Mountain, and I got to witness so much of that going on. And it was,
Mhm.
I mean, a word that I used to describe it was miraculous. Like, some of the healing that was taking place was just, it was so simple and yet so epic and powerful.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is to realize where is the epic and the powerful, even in the worst of times. Part of this
Mm-hmm.
is, you had shared with me about, the beginning of Easton, and it was, your retreat, and it was right
Mm-hmm.
post election,
Yep.
and clearing that energy, like letting that energy come through so
Mm-hmm.
that you can step into the power of what can be. And part
Yes.
of this, if we don't cleanse those energies, and there's lots of conversations going on these days. There were lots of conversations before. Okay, let's kind of go pre what is
Sure.
now our new reality.
Mm.
There were lots of conversations of people feeling lost and people like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, where am I going? And this isn't a new world of humanity, so to speak. It's a
No.
different
No.
now reality of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, Will, that some of what we do is we get into these spaces where we're like, okay, I'm gonna hold, kind of back to the feelings a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna hang into this space because it becomes a little comfortable to just go, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when we step in and go, okay, well, what could we do differently to release some of that? I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing a whole lot more being outside, getting
Nice.
out in nature,
Mm-hmm.
having quiet time,
Mm-hmm.
definitely staying off of social media,
Yeah.
certain social medias for sure, but not being as frequent as I was, which is hard as a
Yeah.
guy who has to promote business through those
Sure.
channels at times. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing the little things,
Mm-hmm.
like letting myself, not that I say alcohol is the answer, because I know, and we could talk about that a little bit too, because I know you've
Mm.
done a sober journey over the last
Mm.
year or so. But I've also been noticing, if I'm feeling like, well, let's have a cocktail or a glass of
Mm-hmm.
wine, taking a really deep breath
Mm-hmm.
and realizing, yeah, that's one possibility, but I could also do this,
Sure.
and letting myself heal through different means. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been such an interesting few days since
Mm.
this all happened for me. So I'm curious, like,
Mm.
as you saw pre, and I know I want to kind of come, to your own little, I know we were going to maybe talk about this, but since I know you've talked about it, like, what's it been like to be on that sober sort of space? Not because
Mm.
you had an issue, but you chose. It was a choosing, right?
Yeah, I chose, and yeah, I wouldn't say so. I would call myself like sober curious, right? So I'm not 1000% sober. There are times where I'll have a drink when the time feels right, when it feels aligned, and I do it in the most mindful way that I'm capable of. So I really set intentions. I really treat a beverage as a spirit, right? It's called a
Mm-hmm.
spirit for a reason, and so I treat it as a spirit, and I make sure that going into an experience with a spirit, that I'm setting the intention for how that experience is going to be. And Yeah, I'd say what the journey coming into sober curiosity, which originally was sobriety. Now I'm just my default is sobriety, but sometimes I do I give myself permission to drink when it feels aligned, when it feels right. But that journey was also learning how to party without alcohol. Was learning how to really let go and let loose and be free and be social and have fun without booze. And now that I've spent a year mastering that, I feel like alcohol doesn't have a hold on me, that I can pick and choose when I'm going to do it. And frankly, a main reason that I choose not to do it is often because I just don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like how it makes me sleep, and I don't like how it makes me feel the next day. But in times like these, there might be moments where it's like I actually want to numb out a little bit, and I'm going to choose to do that, and but it's still a mindful choice. It's when we're doing things really unconsciously, when we're sad, and so then we find ourselves drinking every night that week and not feeling great about it. It's like that's when it becomes problematic. It's never the choice, it's the energy behind the choice, right? And so I
Yes.
feel like absolutely bringing this up in general is so important, because it's like these are the times where we need to really check our energy behind our choices, where we don't want to be reactive. We don't want to be reactive to the state of the world. We want to be responsive. And yes, sometimes that might look like choosing to numb out, but let's be mindful in that choice. Let's not be reactive and unconscious. Let's be mindful and responsive. So we recognize the energy behind our actions. And yeah, I love that you're getting outside. I'm doing a lot of that too. I mean, talk about the natural healing that can take place by simply walking in nature.
Yep.
There's so much to be received in that. And I also have been deciding not to take a front row seat in the drama that's being played out politically. Like in the past, I think the big lesson I learned from the 2016 term was I was a little obsessed with it. I was like paying so
Right.
much attention to it. And it was like, staring at every accident on the side of the highway and really like staring at it like intently and like finding my way to that accident to stare. Like I don't need to do that. And so that's kind of one of my big intentions for this term coming up, is like not taking a front row seat.
Yeah.
And so it's like, again, like how can I choose actions that are healthy for me? And above all else, how can I bring awareness to the energy behind my choices and my actions?
Well, and it's all part of that healing you do within, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I love the, not choosing to be front and center. Your sober journey to me is such a beautiful thing, because you have done the healing. Like, hey, there wasn't any reason I had to quit. There was a choosing to, like, I don't feel good when I drink. And, you're not saying it's not going to happen, but there's this, okay. And then you see the healing that happens. And that's the thing I think sometimes that we as humans, and especially as gay men, we forget there's so many ways we can heal some of the things that we let hold us hostage. And when we give room to go, okay, but this is healing me, like the decision to drink or not to drink, the decision to flip on social media or not be on social media. I mean, I'll be honest, one of the things I did the day after, I was really numb. I had to work. I had to face some people in my world that I knew had been the other side of the fence. And I made it through the day. But then, and my parents were here too. So there was no
Pause.
downtime,
There's no
right?
spaciousness. Yeah.
And then we had a friend that came into town right after my parents left. So it was like,
Wow.
so it was
Nonstop.
Sunday before there was any just, okay. And I literally just let myself sit in front of my computer and create and write
Yeah.
and get it all out in different ways. I probably created, I don't know how many Instagram posts, most of which will never get posted.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I don't want, I mean, a few have come up that I feel like, okay, that one I think can send the message really, subtly without being like in your face. But even as I looked at that one, I held on to it for a while. It actually just posted just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Nice.
okay, I felt like that's a good way to express myself, but
Yeah.
so much of it got channeled into creativity. And
Nice.
it's interesting to see when you give yourself that way of healing what is going
Mm.
on, what you're
Mhm.
capable of doing. And also not holding yourself so accountable to some stuff, you know? I had a
Mhm.
friend of mine tell me, he enjoys the gym. He is truly, I'm not going to call him a gym rat, but
Mhm.
it's his social space, it's his culture space, it's just
Yeah.
everything. And he's like, I feel so guilty because I just don't feel like I have the energy to go to the gym.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I said, well, is that going to help you feel better not going?
Mhm.
And he said, well, maybe. I said, then give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission not to go to the gym right now. Maybe you
Mhm.
need to hold yourself in that gentle space. And
Mm.
he did for a day or two. And then he messaged me and he said, I finally did. And he goes, I realized the gym is actually where I can work this out.
Nice.
No
Yeah.
pun intended.
Yeah, but it came from that place of acceptance instead of guilt and shame. He was like accepting, okay, this
Right.
is where I'm at. And then that was what created the spaciousness for it to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love what you talked about with writing the posts and not necessarily posting them, but the act of writing them was some of the processing and healing that needed to take place. It's funny, I just got off the phone with a client of mine who got ghosted, and that's a terrible thing that many of
Yep.
us have experienced, and there's been a lot of pain around the rejection story that she's created from that experience, and she's decided she wants to write him a letter explaining how much he hurt her, and I encouraged her to do it, but not necessarily to give it to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because giving it to him is like trying to punish him, and that's not
Yeah.
what creates the healing. His state of being doesn't impact our heart. If he's upset and punished, that doesn't make our heart feel better. What
Mm-hmm.
makes our heart feel better is processing, is letting the feelings out, is accepting the feelings, feeling the feelings. That's what's going to help her heart allow it to go, to not stay so stuck on the thing and to move on. So yeah, I love that you did that in the act of creating a post that didn't even get posted, but some did, obviously.
Well, and that came out of a conversation I had with a fellow guest who was on, Wade
Mm,
Maggard. He's a therapist in Houston, and we've become friends, kind of like you and I have, through
mhm,
just this podcast medium and everything. And he's actually a Buddhist practitioner. So I
mm,
reached out to him. Well, first I reached out to him and said, "Hey, how are you and hubby doing?" Right. And in his beautiful way, he said, grieving, processing everything. But he goes,
mhm,
I know my way through is to just continue to put out love and empathy
mm,
to everyone,
yeah,
and however that looks. And
mm.
at first, my little body was like, I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right. And then I
Mm,
thought, well, you know what? It took me back to times in my life when I was battling with my parents about being
mhm,
gay, or, different times with my ex-wife as we went through the divorce and everything.
mhm,
The moments that I said, okay, well, how can I just stand in a different space? How can I stand in
mhm,
a different viewpoint from this? Come from a place of love and empathy.
mhm.
Well, first of all, my energy just smoothed out.
Nice. Yep,
It just became really calming versus let's go fight. Right.
yep,
And I feel like that's something that as we each start to process through whatever comes up in our life, not just
mhm,
this post-election stuff, that you find those moments where you have that little shift and you go, oh yeah,
mhm.
that feels better. That feels really super
Yeah.
good. But I also discovered in a conversation, that I opened up, you and I talked about this. I opened up like to my list. I said, hey, if
Mhm,
anybody needs to process, just, hit me up. I'm not looking to try to get coaching clients. If you need
mhm.
30 minutes of time, if you want to just come and sit and scream on the phone. Well,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if I'd sit and scream, listen to the screen the whole time, but I would definitely hold the space and all this sort of stuff.
Sure.
And one of those conversations went really interesting because
Mm,
it became a conversation of, I want to be with my community, but I don't know if I should be with my community because
mm,
I'm not sure I can take everybody being in, oh, this is sucks. This is it. I said, okay, so what would be the difference? He kind of got really quiet and he goes, I don't know. I need to think on that. The next day he messaged me and said, so I did something really different. I went and just kind of found a community where I didn't know anybody. Because by not knowing anybody, there wasn't that commonality of let's talk about this. And I said, really, where did you find that community? He goes, I'm not going to say where he lives, but he lives in a lovely West Coast area where it's still warm. He goes, I went to a park where there were a lot of moms with kids. And he goes, I just kind of sat and I started talking to one mom. He goes, I was a little concerned, like, oh, here's this guy and you know, all these moms and kids, you know, the weird stuff that people can think about that. He goes, but I started having this conversation with this mom just about, you know, being a parent and, you know, favorite things she loves to do. And then, you know, suddenly this other mom kind of joined in and he said, I ended up spending a whole hour just talking with these moms and just being kind of like a mom with them, even though I had no kids. He had his dog, so he had his dog.
Yeah.
So
Good,
you know, a guy
good.
with a dog will always help
That
mom
helps.
with kids, right?
Yeah.
And he said that was the, you know, he goes, it's a weird way I found my community.
Oh,
just for
that's
that
so
moment.
sweet. That's so sweet. Yeah, that's what
and
it
I think
is.
sometimes that's what we all need is like, I mean, I love my community. I love my parents, you know, my family, my parents, my, you know, kids, my LGBTQ, but sometimes it gets to be just a little bit much if we're all going down the same route.
Sure, it can be challenging and it can be helpful to know that you're not alone in your experience of suffering or fear or whatever it is that you're experiencing. I mean, in the heart circle that I held shortly after the election results, there was a real mix of I mean, you know, generally all the emotions were challenging emotions, but there were some people who were sitting with hope. With there was some people who were inviting prayers, you know, for the incoming president to for him to be as compassionate and loving and have a change of heart and mind, you know. And so that was a very challenging but potentially heart expanding invitation, you know. And I do think that this opportunity for us to potentially step into compassion and empathy and love in the face of oppression is as it has the potential of major heart expansion. Of course, that doesn't mean that we are meant to not discern and not to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves. We can still have that protective guardian fight and move forward with compassion and love. So it's like holding those two things that seem oppositional true at the same time. And I think that's where our ego tells us it doesn't work like that. Our ego will tell us that we need to hold the wall up and hate and punish in order to protect ourselves, and that's the only way our heart can heal. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a way to find a balance of discerning how much we can open up and be vulnerable and move forward from a place of love and compassion while simultaneously holding our boundaries and protections. Like those things can happen at the same time, and that is the way forward. And that is a way forward that will call consciousness, human consciousness, into the next level. That's what I'm hoping for.
That's what I'm hoping for too. I mean, at times it's hard because I go that I'll go spin and then I'm like, but wait, what if this is the new opening to a new way of being conscious? You know, my parents, as I mentioned, my parents were here during the whole election night and everything, and they ascribe to a belief system that's faith-based, that, you know, for whatever reasons and things, practices, that you know, there will come an end to time and then God will come back, which I fine. I was raised that way. I can lean into that to some degree. I kind of see it through a different lens at this point. Like, well, I think maybe the coming back is the consciousness of the planet, you know, all this sort of stuff. Who knows if it'll happen in my lifetime? Because, you know, I'm 61, so I'm out to pasture, boys. You know, us guys that are 60 something are out to pastures, right?
Not true.
But it was interesting to watch my dad, who is very much, because his family this is how they process these sort of things. It's always, oh, this is going to be the end of time. Oh, I have been hearing the end of time since I was old enough to understand what the words end of time meant. So,
Wow.
okay. And so, of course, he was in his end of time mode,
End of time
even before,
story.
okay. And my poor husband dealt with it first thing the next morning because he was the first one up, and then my dad was up.
Oh,
God bless my dad. So finally, dad's going on, and I said, you know what, Dad? I completely can understand your feelings, but if you ascribe to that belief system that this could usher this in, and then God is going to come back and re-inhabit the earth and heaven on earth, whatever, shouldn't you be happy?
Yeah, we're moving towards this prophecy. Yeah,
this is the thing that you believe in so well, which I know on the flip side of that is the alternative of how all that gets taught. So if you're not good, you're not going to get to experience it. So it's the hell of damnation, right?
Yeah,
but it was interesting to even see, Will, as I said that to my dad, it got him stopped and paused. He still wasn't like 100% on, and I had to do it again a little bit with him. And I think it finally sunk in, but I also feel like this was just the way of nudging forward.
Yeah.
Like, let's nudge into some other possibilities.
Yeah. The possibility that this is God's master plan. Yeah.
Right. Or the planet, whatever, the universe, God, whatever it is, there's a
universe, God,
plan.
source, energy, all
exactly.
the things. Yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah. And there is a lot of peace that can come from that perspective, that this is all meant to be. I mean, it's not that everyone needs to accept that idea, but it can create a lot of peace. But, going back to the piece around community, I do think that these times, that is so, so important to be with community. I feel like to be with community can create the safety that many of us are feeling like we are being stripped of. So it's like, how can we create that feeling of safety for each other? If we don't feel it in this larger picture or political climate, how can we feel it on a more micro level so that our nervous systems can regulate, and we, in those spaces can choose to heal things that are still needing to be healed. And we can choose to step more into responsiveness instead of reactivity. And I do think that community is a big part of this whole process, is people finding their community, spending time with their community, allowing the healing that comes from being in community to take place so that we can move forward in a better way.
That's such a huge piece of the puzzle. This has been one of my hardest things to really grow in myself, is the response versus the reaction. It is such an energetic shift. Even I've learned, even I can feel it when I even say the words now. Like I can either react or I can respond. And when I speak on stage with this, I use kind of like what I just did. There's these things that we can do, that we can react to them or we can respond. Because I want to create that contrast.
Yeah, that energy shift. Yeah.
And that shift, because that's literally what I've learned. And it's taken a lot of years, because I fought so hard when I came out to tell my parents this was the way it's going to be. And so I was always in reaction, just in reaction mode, just in, and many of us have experienced those moments. And then I saw it in other areas of my life and all this. And I think what you just brought up is finding that way within community that helps getting you grounded to, how do we respond? How do we do this? I mean, I've seen a lot of posts, and I've posted a couple of things like, let's get ready for the fight. We're going to have to stand some ground. I have a feeling in some spaces, but I also want to make sure I'm not reacting just to react. Like, let's think through what's the best way to do this. One of the first things I did, and I started, so this goes to your community thing. I'm like, okay, I know I could go to HRC. I could go to the Trevor Project, and I'm not discounting any of those communities, right? I could start immediately, like, okay, let's start donating. Let's start doing this. ACLU definitely was one of the first places. I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to get on the monthly donation thing, do what I can.
Nice.
But I reached out to my communities, a lot of different ones, some people who work in those spaces. And I said, hey, I support you. I reached out to a friend that works at Equality California. I said, I'm willing to support Equality California, but I want you to tell me, based on what you do in that advocacy role, where would you put some money and efforts if I wanted to do something besides like an Equality California or HRC? And I had a lot of those different conversations with different people. And I ended up with this really beautiful set of communities. Like now I get to choose like what calls to me, what makes me feel like this works, because it's again, stepping into communities in a different realm. And I'm putting that out there for everyone who's listening. Like you may think you don't have any impact or like, I don't know what to do. This is where you could go find community, find those people who are feeling in the same way that you do, find the people who want to support something, who want to build something. And I'm going to put the real weird twist on this, guys. And for those of you that can say you can never find a man, you never know when you'll find a man in some of these communities, because
that's right.
Gay men are everywhere. And a lot of gay men who really are the guys that some of you would really want to be with, that's where you're going to find these guys. You may not find them at a gay bar. You may not find them on a gay cruise. You got to
They might be active and engaged in their communities.
Right? Yeah. So what was one of the things you noticed most about this retreat that you just finished up about the community of men? I know it was a very small group, but it sounded like it was a very powerful group. Once you stepped them past like this initial, okay, let's have this cleanse about what just happened. I'm assuming not a lot of them knew each other. That's usually the way these things go, right?
Yeah, I don't think any of them knew each other. There's 12 of us. And yeah, I mean, it was really powerful, the type of healing that took place once they felt safe and once they really set that intention to heal. And it was in the way that they showed up for each other, right? In the way that they listened to each other, in the way that they connected with their own hearts and connected with each other's hearts. That's where the healing took place. I mean, it was simple and it was fast, Rick. It was like within 24 hours, there was like such deep connection and deep healing happening. And I think it was because of the need and the intention and the safety that was created in the space, that was co-created. You know, it wasn't just me like waving my magic wand to create safety. I held space and helped facilitate the co-creation of safety amongst the 12 men. And so, yes, they didn't know
you had
each
your
other
magic
ahead of
wand,
time.
though.
I mean, metaphorically, I might have been
metaphorically, no. But I love what you just said. It's the need, the safety, and the intention. And I've done many retreats over and over, been part of them, then been facilitator and been, you know, kind of background support. And I've never seen one that's not successful unless the intention, the safety, and the need is being addressed. When those three things come together, man, mountains can move. Mountains can move so amazingly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, you know, that goes back to the point that we are inherently natural healers for ourselves and for each other. We just need to have the circumstances, the right circumstances that allow that inherent natural healing to take place. And again, it's like so important to be tapping into that during these times, because the healing is going to clear the things that would cause the reactivity, that would strip us of our agency to be more mindful, to be aware of the energy behind our actions, and to have the capacity to step more into responsiveness. So the healing is what premeditates the possibility of effective responsiveness, so that we can move through these times in a good way and come out on the other side of it more resilient, more strong, more effective, more empowered than we ever have been. I mean, that's the vision that I'm holding.
Well, it's not only the vision you're holding, but you're actually doing it again. So let's talk about your retreat that's coming up in January.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so this past one over the last weekend was on the East Coast at the Retreat Center Easton Mountain that I used to serve as the executive director for. But this retreat that's coming up in January is taking place here in California, which is where I live now. And this one's going to be in the high desert in Joshua Tree, which is a very beautiful place. It holds a certain energy. You know, it's one of those places like Sedona. It's like it holds this really sacred energy. And so when we are able to tap into that energy with the energy of the group, a lot of magic can take place. So I'm really looking forward to it. I've got a really beautiful space selected for this one, really comfortable, and also like deeply in the nature of the place. So yeah, I'm excited.
So what would be the right type of guy that could get something from your retreat? Let's kind of
Yeah, well,
set
first of
that
all,
tone.
it's a really wide demographic. So we had a guy this past weekend who was 25. We had a guy who was 80. And the
Wow,
intergenerational stuff that takes place is so beautiful.
I'm
And we're
sure.
really there not looking to connect erotically. Like the sexual stuff is off the table. This is really about connecting with our hearts. And so it's for folks who are looking to cultivate more self-love, like really love themselves more, looking to have deeper connections with other people. So we create deep connections in the group, but then we're able to take the skills that we learned in that process, the embodied skills that we learned in being vulnerable with each other, back to our relationships at home. So it's people who are looking for having deeper connections in their lives, and then also people who are looking to be more authentic and self-expressed, because when we have that more self-love and we have that safety that comes from a deeper connection with others, then we have the foundation to really step into our authenticity and express that. So those are the three pillars that we get to explore over the weekend. And again, I feel like I've said this word healing so many times in this podcast, but I'm so present to it because of the powerful healing I just witnessed over the weekend. But it's also, a place for people who are seeking some healing and growth to come to. So yeah, gay men who are ready for those things. I'd
And,
say
and
that
I
that
always
would be
find when we allow ourselves to see this, and it's hard. It's hard as men, number one, to say, "Oh, I need to heal." Right? There's this
mhm,
this
mhm,
exterior of, and I don't care if you're a super masculine guy or you're not. There's this thing
mhm,
about masculinity that says, I got this. I can do this. Right?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
when we surrender, I remember
Yes.
one of the first gay men's retreats I ever went to after I came out, and I really like, I got this. My ego was so like, I got this figured out. And then suddenly when
Mhm.
I broke, and I broke
Mm.
really big, and to the point that I
Nice.
literally was sobbing, and
Good for
I'm
you.
not saying, guys, that that's what's going to
It
happen, but
doesn't
you never
have
know.
to happen. It could
No, it
happen,
doesn't
but
have to
doesn't have
happen.
to
You can
happen. Yeah.
have some other stuff.
More
It was
subtle. Yeah.
so healing for me because I
Mm.
realized how much stuff I was holding in,
Yes. That's so
and
powerful.
as I moved through this past week, and literally today, the day that we're recording this podcast,
Mhm.
um, I had a break. I finally had a break,
Mhm.
but it wasn't a huge emotional.
Yeah.
It was more like this internal sigh of like, okay, that's now released.
Yeah.
Um, and it felt
Mhm.
so good to just go,
Oh,
okay,
beautiful.
because up until that point, I'd been having this like kind of headachy, not like migrainey,
Mm.
but just like pressure, which I
Mhm.
get a lot because I've got
Yeah.
some tinnitus and stuff in my ears. So that
Mhm.
happens for you. But when I feel the stress and pressure, it like
Mhm.
catapults, right?
Yep.
I don't have the hair to protect everything anymore. So, but it was really cathartic to
Oh,
feel
that's
through that. And it was
beautiful.
so amazing, Will, because as soon as that happened, I kind of, I mean, I had looked at my calendar. I knew we were doing this, but you
Uh-huh.
get busy. And then as soon as that happened, I like looked at my calendar, like, okay, so what do I have? And I'm like, I get to talk to
Oh.
Will, and I
Oh, I
think
love
it'll be something
that.
really good to share because it
Mm.
was like, oh, I did a little bit of healing. I did a little bit of
Mm.
releasing in that moment.
You had to
Um,
feel it to heal it, and you
I
had the
did have to
space
feel
to finally do
that's
that.
going to go on. It's going to be a bumper
Oh,
sticker or something,
it's so
sugar. I'm
good.
telling you,
It's
it
so
is. Yeah.
good. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I'm really excited for you. The dates of the retreat
Thank you.
again, they're
Yeah, so
January
it's
what?
coming up January 23rd. 1, 2, 3. January 23rd of 25.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Joshua Tree, it's beautiful, guys. If you are from California, you haven't been there, you will, if you haven't been there, period, from anywhere, but if you're in California, haven't been there, I can tell you it is a magical space to like even just getting to go hike out through Joshua Tree,
Oh
like just
yeah.
going in for the day is an
Oh yeah.
experience,
It's so beautiful. And we do a lot of that too. Like the retreat isn't just like really hard, deep, heavy work. It's a lot of fun too. Because I
Mhm.
find that play and joy is one of the fastest access points to our hearts. And so,
Mhm.
the work is really about getting in touch with our hearts. So we do a lot of like fun, joyful camaraderie kind of stuff as well, like
Right.
hiking and playing games. So
As
Yeah,
it
but
should
I'd
be.
love to have
As
folks.
it
It's gonna
should.
be 3 nights, and, yeah, I'm excited. The men who
And so
show
if they
up for these
want
things
to
always so
learn more,
amazing.
where's the best place for them to go to learn
Yeah,
about it?
my website, yeah, wil-fullliving.com, and then you go to my events page, and there's info
Awesome.
on there.
And gang, we'll have the link to that as well, for sure.
Awesome.
And let's not forget, he's got a podcast too. You should give a shout
Hmm.
out to what your podcast is.
Yeah, Queerly Beloved. Yeah, we gotta get you
Mhm.
on there someday, Rick, when
Well,
you're
I've been
ready.
waiting. I now hear you've been on mine a couple of times. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding all
You
the
are so
time. But
invited. You are
yeah,
so
no,
invited. I'd
I'm
love
looking
to
forward
interview
to it.
you.
When the time is right, it always
Yeah.
happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited for everything that's coming your way and everything that you do in the world to help us heal, find the power of our healing, be healers to others, help us
Mhm.
embrace the communities where we can get that kind of support, or be in communities where we can give that kind of support. I so
Mm.
appreciate you, Will, and everything
Mm.
that you're doing out there in the world, buddy.
So much love to you, Rick. Thank you so much.
And because I appreciate you so much, if any of you guys are listening and you would like to attend Will's retreat, when you make application with Will, say you heard about it on 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk, and this is only one gift I'm giving. But if you say you've heard it, I'm giving Will permission to contact me, and I will pay $200 of your registration fee.
That
Because
is so generous.
I just believe in what you do, man. And I
Wow.
want to give
Thank you.
something back. I'm
Wow.
in that mode of what can I put good out into the world? It's not because,
Mhm.
I want to, I want to start giving. And if a guy, and if you want to split it between two guys, I'm totally cool with that. If you get somebody who's like, I'd
Cool.
really like to come. If you want to split $200 between four guys,
Cool.
I'm giving you a gift, but
That is so
you have
generous.
to make application with Will. You have to say you heard about it on 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. And if you don't get
Awesome.
somebody that heard it on there, hit me up, Will. I'll sponsor somebody else. But I'd really
No,
love
that is so
a
generous.
listener of
Thank you.
mine to be able to help you
Mhm.
out there, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
anyway,
Thank you.
you bet.
Appreciate that so much.
All right, so I think we've put some good juju out there in the world. I hope, Will.
Yeah,
And guys, thank you for
definitely.
listening and being present with Will and I. And
Mhm.
I can't tell you how much my heart swells. I know Will feels the same way about
Mhm.
his podcast when we
Mhm.
know people are listening, and it's not because let's get all these downloads. Like, it does my heart so good to know that there's people that are like, this really helps me, and that's what I
Mhm.
want this to be, is a process and a podium platform, what all those different things, to just be something we give back into the world. So
Absolutely. That people
thank you,
care
friend,
about
for
this
being
stuff.
here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the hugs, the big hug that this
The big hug.
conversation felt like. Yeah.
Cool. And guys, thank you for being here. Take the big hug with you. Go out and have a
Yeah.
great week. And we'll be back in just another week with another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. And again, if you want to go to Will's retreat, mention it when you make application. I'm going to help sponsor with a little bit of money to help you get there. So have a good week, everyone.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.